let me check if the stream works. There's already first people coming in. It's a bit of an unusual time for me to do live streams, but I have to get it here. I'm in a different, like, I just moved from Europe to Mexico, so I have to like think in a different time zone. But yeah, I think we're live. I think we're rolling. So chat, please tell us if the sound is all right, if the audio quality and the camera and the visuals is all right. That's the most important, because I have a special guest today, another Cosmos OG and another big project in the space that I have not covered yet here on my channel. So that's basically the first time here. I'm really excited to have Eric here from Injective Labs. Eric, thanks for coming on. How's everything going?
Good. Top of the morning here.
Nice, yeah, and it's been also a pleasure to meet you and the team in Lisbon at the conference at the Cosmoverse. And everyone who wants to have a very high-level, brief overview of what Injective is, I highly recommend your talk that you gave there. That was really cool. And I think since then, this was November, right? Now it's mid-January. I think since then you guys have progressed a lot, and there's a lot of news that we can cover today. But first of all, I'd be interested to hear your Cosmos journey. You have been on the train early on, and I think now as the Cosmos ecosystem is gaining more and more traction, Osmosis, we can talk about this later as well, one of the best DEX experiences out there at the moment, which you are getting on soon, I guess, as well. So what is your Cosmos journey, and how did you stumble upon it in the first place?
Yeah, so basically I was doing a lot of kind of protocol research and cryptographic research kind of like at my college back then. This is like years ago. And basically back in the day, there weren't any, like production ready, like consensus mechanisms that were, that serves as, like a steady and kind of like a tested alternative to proof of work. And so kind of like the Tendermint consensus was kind of like one of the obvious choices as a kind of like a proof of stake candidate, because back in the day, I think like the only other like notable like proof of stake protocol is pretty much just EOS. So obviously, the space has evolved a lot since then. But basically, I think back in the day, like if you ever want to build like an application specific blockchain, or any chain that wants to break away from the EVM restrictions, I think like Tendermint was definitely the go-to for it.
Yeah, and so when did that happen, and how was the integration? And also, I think maybe you can talk a little bit about that as well. The IBC integration, which I think you just implemented. So how were those steps for you from a project perspective to implement Cosmos technology?
Yeah, so basically, like we were kind of just like head down building, Injective's core exchange mechanism, and so basically, slowly we started noticing that there was a lot of development around Cosmos SDK and IBC, and it seems like it was like getting really, really exciting. So we actually did a pretty early like architectural change to move from basically the Tendermint chain towards Cosmos, and that was kind of like a pretty major like shift in direction for us to have this early commitment to be part of this kind of like high growth ecosystem that was extremely promising back in the day. And so kind of with that in mind, we did like the Stargate upgrade basically before we launched the Canary chain, and that was basically like the sign that we're like IBC ready chain. And so afterwards, it was pretty clear for us to be able to integrate with most of the Cosmos zones with IBC channels, and that's kind of like a consistent effort for us, amongst like many other things.
So how do you, because I think at least for me, when I got into Cosmos, which is now almost around a year ago, so I'm kind of new still to this whole ecosystem. But when I got into it, what really hooked me was also this ethos from the developing teams behind it, right? To say, hey, there's not going to be one winner chain that takes it all and that rules everything else. No, instead we have these application-specific chains, like you said, that will all be able to communicate to each other. So I think that's also an ideological alignment that I have, at least with customers. And my question would be, how do you view the broader crypto industry and where we are headed, right? There's a lot of tribalism sometimes, and chain A is better than chain B, whatever. So what are your views on the crypto industry as a whole, coming from this Cosmos angle?
Yeah, I think like basically in order to position any type of like protocol or like any community, one like you have to be really kind of like almost like chain agnostic to be able to understand that, you know, like some of the newer like high growth chains may not be around within the next 10 years, and some of the, you know, older more legacy chains also will be the same case. And but personally, you know, like I'm still a very big fanatic for like the obvious ones like a Bitcoin and let's say Ethereum. I would say that basically like application specific chain is extremely important as kind of this categorization. It's like either you're a dApp on top of like an EVM layer or any other, you know, like a VM or contract, or, you know, like you have to build your own chain. So I think Cosmos is this kind of like a perfect middle ground for a lot of these, you know, innovative projects that are trying to, you know, break away from the restrictions of virtual machines and, you know, really utilize some of the amazing features of Cosmos like Begin Blocker and End Blocker to be able to build, you know, applications that weren't really possible before. So that's I think is the most exciting part about Cosmos for me, is that first of all, you know, like it allows you to abstract away a lot of the, you know, kind of like base layer consensus stuff, and also on another hand, create this entire ecosystem, you know, reconciling the fact that things are going to be application specific. You're not going to, you know, like anchor all the value within just one chain. And I think that's really what allows, you know, like first of all, like a very, you know, loyal developer base, and also a very loyal community around, you know, like this extremely unique kind of like a moat or like defensibility against, you know, let's say like another L1 with an EVM that can just, you know, deploy the same Ethereum contract.
Yeah, and I think what you guys are also heavily betting on is this aspect of interoperability and connecting to other ecosystems as well. I think you guys have been maybe the first or one of the first ones actually to implement the Gravity Bridge. So maybe you can talk a little bit about that. Maybe first of all, what the Gravity Bridge actually is. I think there's a lot of new people that have never heard of it. And then what version did you do any sort of modifications or added your own flavor to it of the bridge did you actually implement?
Yeah, so basically we had so back then Gravity Bridge was called like Peggy, which I think was actually a pretty cool name as well. I think Gravity Bridge is like you know, a lot more official, but like back then like Peggy seems like a very quirky name, which I like. So basically like we were trying to bridge assets over from Ethereum, and there were a lot of existing works around Peggy, but it seems like basically like the better direction for the Gravity Bridge team to do is to kind of like have, you know, different components, for example, the orchestrator to be written in Rust. And we decided to go for like a slightly different approach. So we had, you know, like a simpler functionality in terms of, you know, for now it's just like ERC20 tokens, and basically rewrote the orchestrator into Go. And another really big thing that we did back in the day was having this internal bridge between, you know, this well, now called Gravity Bridge, and also the Ethermint layer. But obviously for now, like Ethermint is kind of like I guess the EVM layer on Injective is a little bit deprecated, pending for like another release. But basically, like back then, we kind of had this vision of like how it might look like. But it's really like an amazing journey to see like how Gravity Bridge, you know, like has evolved over time. And you know, like we were always concerned about basically us, you know, like rewriting the orchestrator, kind of staying in a certain version, especially on the Ethereum contract side, would cause some significant issues. So that's why, you know, like we launched the Canary chain first. And the community kind of like agreed on, you know, like the timing for like the canonical chain. And so basically like during that time period, the security of the contract is still like up in the air. You don't know like whether there's going to be a critical vulnerability to be discovered, or you don't know, like whether there's some issues with the orchestrator. So yeah, it's I mean, it's interesting to like work on like a fully decentralized bridge like that, but it's also like a very nerve-wracking process.
Yeah, I can imagine, and I guess it was very similar with the IBC development around last year, and then when you guys implemented it, those are massive implementations. But now that we learned a little bit about the technical architecture and how Injective is built, and we heard IBC, we heard the Gravity Bridge now, the Tenement consensus algorithm, which powers it all, the Cosmos SDK. Maybe can you explain it from a kind of like product market fit standpoint? Where does Injective plug in? Because as I understand it, you guys are trying to build a spot as well as a derivatives exchange where you can trade various assets, and you have very fast finality, obviously, and very low fees or no fees at all. So maybe you can talk a little bit about the mission that you guys are on, and which niche you saw that, hey, there's nobody working on this. We need to fill this gap.
Yeah. So first of all, like there's no kind of like a order book based infrastructure that's fully on chain, especially around the Ethereum or like any EVM based community. So that was kind of like how Injective kind of started. It was figuring out ways to build these layers, because obviously back in the day, it wasn't as much of a multi-chain world as it is now. So basically, like we built the exchange module and also the like all the derivative plus spot component to it, so that it has kind of this data availability for the entire order book, and also the positions and also transactions, and like obviously the M blocker execution that matches all the cross orders. And the really exciting part about this is that basically it means that it has like any type of market maker, any type of traditional strategies have all the tools at their disposal to launch an on-chain strategy. So like there were a lot of DeFi primitives and also like DeFi protocols that had to basically reconcile with all the restrictions around EVM and all like data availability issues, or like Oracle issues, or just trying to be gas efficient or storage efficient, and having this kind of like a exchange layer or like order book layer that's native to the blockchain itself basically allows the entire like all the algorithms or like all the models that's being used in traditional finance to be fully deployed on like Injective's upcoming like contract layer, a smart contract layer, right? Mm-hmm. So it means that basically, like for example, like AMM, as a generic LP, Uniswap, let's say a V2 style, the LP, the liquidity provider will have to charge the 0.3% fee to be able to be compensated for the impermanent loss. And obviously, that's not the perfect model, because it's essentially liquidity providers giving up arbitrage opportunity to arbitragers, and people who are actually looking to trade paying that 0.3%, which is obviously higher than any centralized exchange out there, I guess, except for Coinbase app. But basically, like that's not like a normal model for general trading. Like fees shouldn't be this high for like any participant, and impermanent loss shouldn't be this high. So it really kind of levels the playing field for people deploying strategies on chain, and also being able to create a lot of wonderful new DeFi primitives around Injective because of this availability of order book.
So I think the key innovation, and maybe you can go deeper into this in a second, I'll ask you a very specific question. But I think the key innovation here is that you can set limit orders, right? I think, I don't know if there's any exchange on Ethereum, maybe is it 1inch or something, someone else, where you can set limit orders? But I think there's not too many out there in the broader like cryptoverse either. and the fact that you can also trade derivatives, right? So I think that's something really, really cool, powered by all this Cosmos technology. But the question I have, maybe you can explain it more clearer, because we have some people watching right now that might be just familiar with Uniswap, or they might be just familiar with 1inch, or just with Osmosis, right? I guess most of you guys are just with Osmosis familiar. But maybe can you tell us, where does Injective fit in, right? Is it more something like Osmosis? How does it differentiate to Osmosis or 1inch? Like, can you maybe differentiate to all the other major decentralized exchanges that we see out there, so that we can get a better feeling for what type of users Injective is attracting?
Yeah, I think the simplest comparison that people can probably understand immediately is probably kind of like a decentralized FTX or like a decentralized Binance, where the order book and all the trades are fully on chain. So basically, it's not necessarily what the DeFi users are used to for like AMM, obviously, because it has a constant curve in terms of like slippage and liquidity, obviously as a function of the demand for the base asset. So I guess for cold assets if it's a sell, but it has a much more kind of like representative liquidity, and so that means that it's a lot more reflective of like what the market's actually going on. Basically, it has obviously in a kind of like a capital equivalent basis, far more capital efficient and far better liquidity based on the capital at use, basically. So yeah, I think that's the exciting part.
Nice. And also, there's a site that I highly recommend everybody to check out. It's called info.injective.exchange, which is where you can find the current statistics. Maybe I can share my screen and we can go through some of them. Can you see the screen?
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe Eric, you can go through some of these numbers. I mean, obviously, you guys just crossed $3 billion in total trading volume. That's pretty cool. So I guess that reflects also kind of like your journey since the launch. So yeah, maybe you can talk about some of these charts. That would be cool.
Yeah. So basically, the overall attraction, I would say the reason why Injective.exchange was created was because basically a lot of users were wondering about historical and like cumulative volume, which we actually had to kind of like spin up like a new database for this actually. But yeah, initially on the canonical chain launch, when all the testing restrictions are lifted, I think in the first day there's only like one or two. Actually, there's only one perpetual market, and a couple of spot markets to test. And slowly, over time, more and more perpetual markets are being launched, which contribute to all the community members joining and participating in it. And the Astro program certainly helped in terms of bringing on market makers and bringing on getting the new users over the mental hoop of joining the platform and making more use of the protocol. And yeah, so cumulative volume is what is it now, like?
Yeah, it's 3.2.
3.2, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's not bad. Cool. And what type of assets can you currently trade on Injective? I guess a lot of also Ethereum assets that are bridged over through the Gravity Bridge, or what are the assets, both spot and derivative?
Yeah, so basically any IBC asset and any Ethereum asset can also always be bridged over. Obviously, for IBC assets, it requires an existing channel.
Nice.
And another cool thing is that basically recently the community voted to lower the cost of launching a spot market instantly. So I think there are a few relays that are working on that interface to basically be to basically launch that market with an interface and just just pay like a upfront small fee for it, and basically just see it on most Aureliers.
And one question that I got a lot since I put out these tweets yesterday and today is when osmosis, and I think when osmosis is the next when Binance. So what are the plans for listing on osmosis and also being on Kepler Wallet?
Yeah, I think that's Kepler Wallet is something that we've worked on for quite some time. And basically, because Injective is has a slightly different key derivation, so that's why like it has a little bit of extra work compared to a standard Cosmos zone. But a good thing is that it's all coming along pretty nicely. So I think we're close to the finish line for that. In terms of when osmosis, I think that's really community driven. So once I guess like the front end for the bridge is released, basically community members can like bridge some masses over and start a pool. And on our end, I think we're still surveying in terms of like what's like the best pool to create an LP around.
Nice. So both in the works, both coming very soon, I guess. Another question that a lot of people have asked in that context is that you could share the roadmap. Obviously, in the last 3 months, I think was pretty big for you guys with the mainnet launch and with all these integrations. And now I think in the future, you already said a couple of osmosis integrations coming up. But what are some other big milestones that you have ahead on your roadmap for this year? Maybe for the first half of this year.
So I think the biggest thing right now is like the smart contract layer. So we decided to go with the approach of integrating the Cosmosm. And maybe later, it's also possible through the shared security model to have, like the EVM there as well. But there are a few advantages to the Cosmosm integration in that basically it can interact with all the existing modules within Injective in a very intimate way. So basically, like now any user can theoretically, with the integration of Cosmosm, create market making contracts, allow people to stake into it, kind of create much more capital efficient and much higher return, like Wi-Fi vaults, or launch really interesting strategies, or creating stable coins and I don't know. Lending protocols on top of Injective using like the existing kind of like a exchange ecosystem as the backdrop.
And in that whole context, can you also talk a little bit about the circulating utility of the INJ token that launched, where it's being used? I think it's also a native staking token, right? Since you guys have your own chain, so maybe you can expand a little bit on the token aspect and also the tokenomics of INJ.
Yeah. So basically, INJ is the kind of like the security backbone for obviously the Injector chain, because it's primarily used for staking. I think right now on the Injector chain, I would say like 70 to close to 90% are currently being staked, and so that's like definitely one of the most important aspects of the Injector token. And another really interesting part about Injective is that like in order to combat basically like these market mechanisms and the exchange Injective exchange module charges allows the market creator to charge like a percentage fee. So some of the markets could be 5 bips, some of them could be 12 bips. So all these fees goes to an auction module that kind of at the end of every week allows people to bid for the tokens within the pool. Now there could be like USDT, there could be UST, there could be like later on I guess like INJ or like other assets as well. And it's just a like a run-of-the-mill auction where bidders like I guess are up against the pool and just bid using the native token, and it just goes directly to the coin burn for coin module.
Awesome. Okay, that's really interesting. And Yeah, I'm looking forward. I think on Map of Zones also it's not all updated yet, but also a good site to track IBC traffic and user activity and all these kind of things. So I think in the next weeks we'll see more and more spicy numbers from the Injective side. And how does it look like on the validator end? I think I think back at Cosmos you said you had, was it 25 or 30 validators up and running? How is it looking right now?
Yeah, I think it's going pretty well. Basically, there's 25 validators, and there were actually I think one of the things that I noticed that was pretty surprising is that there's a lot of kind of a one-person validator that kind of did a very good job in setting up the infrastructure. One of this community member called Orman actually built a monitor for checking out the network stats and everything like that. And it's actually a very important utility for the overall protocol and the community, because I think for a protocol to be truly decentralized, there has to be multiple sources of these type of stats validation, and also kind of a non-single source of truth coming from, let's say Explorer or Hub, Injective Hub and stuff like that.
Yeah, and Alpha League from my side at least is also that we're in the works to get Cryptocito up and running on the Injective chain. So we're in the process of that. Before we get into some community questions, there's actually a lot both on Twitter and also right now here in the chat. More people are coming in. Man, you have to give us the alpha. What's a spicy hot thing that people can that should get people excited now in the next coming weeks for that? What's coming on Injective?
Yeah, I think right now the most exciting thing, basically before the CosmWasm integration, because obviously CosmWasm chain upgrade will most likely come with some of the contracts. I guess both as an example or just as kind of like a Genesis contracts to begin with. So before that comes, there's actually a very interesting feature, which is kind of like a very extensive utilization of the OFC module. And because the Injective exchange module has these very interesting messages that doesn't compromise the user security in a sense. And so it gave more confidence for us at the labs team to have a more interesting use case for OFC. So basically, one of the issues that we noticed amongst the community members is that a lot of them, those with a lot of time and effort doesn't necessarily have the capital, and those have a lot of capital doesn't necessarily have the time or patience to trade. So the idea is to utilize OFC to grant either to someone really trusted to delegate these trading activities, or creating this almost like a trading guild where people can join together and basically for example, Bob and Alice, Bob is in let's say UK time, Alice is in Asia time. Then Bob can trade for both Bob and Alice during European hours, and Alice can trade for both Alice and Bob during Asia hours. So it kind of creates this really interesting kind of sense of community. We kind of took a page out of playbook for a yield guild and all those play to earn guilds, and this kind of create this very interesting dynamics where people are kind of working together rather than what you see within a traditional finance space, which is always black box and always competitive.
That's awesome, yeah. So we got CosmWasm smart contracts coming up. We got traders guilds that drives more engagement coming up, and a lot of interesting things. Yeah, I think we can get into community questions, unless there's anything from your side that you want to cover more in depth.
No, I think that's pretty much it.
All right, so because there's a lot of questions, so we can maybe take 2 or 3 minutes more on that end. I'll start with the first one, which is a doubt of Georgios, who is asking, or I should actually tell you that the current update is not sufficient to protect ING tokenomics and reduce the huge imbalance between retail and small users and AMMs. Ask if further improvements are on the cards.
Yeah, so I think there's going to be likely an upcoming chain upgrade proposal that actually kind of like levels the playing field about that, levels the playing field on that, and kind of like I think more details going to be come up on the governance forum, and I mean just in general, right? Like for any type of exchange, and this is the same case, and kind of like an unfortunate truth for like overall DeFi as well, is number one, that rich gets richer, and it's not that they have disproportional return from their capital allocated. It's just that from an absolute basis, higher capital means more notional return. And for most of the exchanges, let's say Binance or Coinbase or FTX, VIP users or like institutional market makers or just in general, those type of actors generally make up around 60 to 70% of the volume, to say the least. Realistically speaking, it's probably more closer to 90%. And even for like DeFi, I would say like arbitrage volume still takes up the majority of volume, especially on Ethereum, where it has gotten so competitive. So basically, it's kind of like an unfortunate case that retail users are being rewarded less on an absolute basis, and it's something that we're always going to try and innovate on and work on.
Nice. Ahmed is asking how you think the DEX volume will increase. There's more INJ distributed to Astro program winners than the burned amount.
Oh yeah, I mean the whole point of like Astro program, that's being voted in by the community is that it kind of incentivizes the early growth. So basically, obviously, in the beginning, the cost of growth is that it'll likely distribute rewards in like a kind of like a net negative basis in the beginning. And I think this is also why for a lot of DeFi protocols, in the beginning, it's always like a heavy release, and basically people are just taking into it. And I would say like this is a similar case with a lot of other protocols on Cosmos as well, right? Like Osmosis also has like pretty high yield to stake into to kind of like attract these like early community members. So yeah, I think this is like part of the growth plan, and obviously this is also why Astro is a downward trending curve, where it eventually gets reduced to less than half after a year or two.
Nice. We got Matt Crypto here in the house, good friend of mine. What's up, Mateo? One of the biggest YouTubers actually also here in Latin America, is making a lot of content in Spanish. Really cool guy. Amol is asking, how does Injective benefit from being on Cosmos chain as compared to the Solana competitor Serum?
Yeah, I think first of all, like Injective never had a downtime. So
that's a good point. It's a very good
point. But that's a nice plus. So and also like just in general, right? Like by having Injective on like a interoperability layer, and being able to connect to Ethereum, and probably later on ask more and more of these layer ones are connected with IBC, it allows Injective to be relatively more chain agnostic, and really become this liquidity aggregation layer for more advanced order types and more advanced trading activities. And like I don't know what the future holds for the Injective chain, for like where it's going to evolve, but I think it's going to be really exciting to see all these L1s and all these like other chains with their liquidity and also with their assets kind of having a more interesting take, or like having more interesting like primitive on Injective.
Dax is asking, when native ETH on Injective, sir?
I mean, like, so that's kind of a restriction on the PEGI contract version we had. Basically, like what we could do is create this on the hub side, create this kind of like an auto swapping feature where like it converts the ETH to WEEF first and then bridge it over. Because it basically doesn't make a difference on Injective chain per se, because regardless, it will still be a wrap version of Ethereum. So yeah.
Okay. And then Amos also asking when the stop loss feature for trading is coming in the derivatives section.
Yeah, so that needs to be built by relayers, because if you put stop loss on chain, it's kind of an information disaster, because then everyone knows like what everyone's stop price is, and they can just manipulate market to trigger those stop prices. So basically, relayers can do support stop loss via let's say, for example, the off-C module, where the user grant permission to execute a certain trade for them. Or basically, there are other creative ways to do it from a relayer side as well. And I think there are actually some relayers that are actively working on it.
Nice. Let's go through some questions on Twitter. I'll actually try to share my screen real quick. Can you see it on my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, Liam is asking. He's also a big Injective community member and overall Cosmos, obviously. The Cosmos community is one of the strongest and most positive communities in crypto. In what ways does Injective plan to leverage? Oh, let me close my. Plan to leverage, integrate with, and most importantly, support the different Cosmos communities.
Yeah, I think like one of the interesting aspects is that basically Injective has this order book layer and it also supports derivatives. So for kind of like bootstrapping the liquidity in the beginning, for projects that doesn't necessarily have like a market maker or doesn't necessarily have like a market making infrastructure for this, like they would usually start off with kind of LPing into an AMM pool on osmosis. But I think like obviously as projects evolve, they might have demand for derivatives, especially for a lot of these staking derivatives are being developed. And then it kind of calls for a more robust type of like liquidity representation and aggregation. So I think that's really where Injective comes into play, is that having this exchange module and having like all the future contracts and projects that would be building on Injective to leverage this ecosystem and really kind of turn this from something that's mainly Asian based at the moment into something that's fully on chain and autonomous is something to really look forward to. Because one of the possible ways I think that's being currently being like explored by a lot of community members, I guess being brainstormed right now, is that basically like if someone wants to launch a token, what they can potentially do is go through the instant launch, aka Ninja listing feature, pay for like the spot fee, and stake like the capital, let's say 50% some stable coin or Atom, and 50% their token, and create this kind of like a sophisticated market making model that is not AMM based, and basically saving a lot of money on institutional market makers and project market makers that are constantly being the complaint for a lot of people.
But yeah, also I think with the upcoming Cosmos integration, there's also going to be a more potentially more overlaps and with other Cosmos projects. So really looking forward to that. And then obviously we also covered already, for those that are tuning in now, the Kepler and Osmosis integration is also coming up and currently in the works. So that's a good one. Let's see what else we have. Okay, so maybe we can talk about this. FMZ is asking, how do I use my Atom Osmo to long short BTC using Kepler wallet only on the platform? Is that something that could technically work?
Yeah, so two ways to do this. So obviously, like with Kepler Wall support, it'll come up soon. And basically, like there's two ways to do this from a protocol layer. Number one is creating these pairs, such as like BTC Atom perpetual, or let's say BTC Osmosis perpetual, and that's one way. But obviously, there's certain challenges with regards to liquidity. The second way is that we're actively working on, and that's part of the kind of like a broader roadmap. And we're still looking into the best approach towards doing this. Is creating this global margining system where basically people can post margin, not just using the cold asset, for example, USDT, but for any asset possible, which is kind of like currently how like FTX works. Basically, you can post ETH as margin and go long in BTC, or post Osmosis or Atom as margin and go long on or go short on BTC. There are many approach towards reaching this end result, and that's actually one of the reasons why we're so focused on Cosmosm, is that beyond like all the projects that I want to build on top of Injective, beyond like the trading guild and also the market makers, is that enables kind of like this contract layer to have like, for example, a stable coin mechanism, or like a global margining mechanism to be managed within like a much more secure layer.
Awesome, man. That's gonna be really, really cool. Maybe we can do one or two more questions. Leonor is asking, will you guys list all Cosmos SDK build coins?
Yeah, we're trying to.
Okay.
There's a lot of IBC channels that Injective Labs is absolutely working on.
Nice. Jamaha is asking, I think we can just take that one. The APY for staking is extremely low. Any plans to incentivize stakers with better APRs?
I mean, like this is kind of like a standard part of I would say like the Cosmos SDK like token economics, is that it's based on kind of like the amount of tokens staked, and also the amount of token that's currently under float. And the good thing about like the Injective chain at the moment is that almost all the tokens existing within the Injective chain are being staked. So unfortunately, that also means that the APY is low as a result. Obviously, like when people move from Ethereum to Injective chain, that means that like more and more float can be within Injective chain, and the APY will increase as a result.
And what's the current inflation on INJ?
I think it's like 5% staking reward.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, we talked about the roadmap goals. We talked about a lot of things. Also some trolls in there. Is there any, maybe that's a good question, is there any fiat on and off ramps in the works, or is that not your focus right now?
Yeah, it's not Injective Labs' focus, but we know that the leaders are working on that.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I think we can leave it here. Yeah, this guy's asking about the Chainlink collab. I think that's regarding the price feeds, if I'm correct.
Yeah, so basically, we're working with Chainlink in terms of like integrating like a Chainlink module for the OCR, and yeah, it's chugging along pretty well. Basically, I think Terra's like working on this same thing with us on this as well, and so I think like what Chainlink is trying to work on is potentially either like an IBC standard for like all the Cosmos ecosystem, or creating this kind of like a Chainlink Oracle module to be able to plug and play and just integrate. And yeah, it's actually pretty exciting to be kind of like the project to be working on this.
Nice, yeah. All right, I think we can leave it here. What would be now the number one thing that you say if somebody's listening, hearing this for the first time, like, hey, this sounds pretty cool, I want to start using it, I want to start getting involved? What would you recommend them to start with?
Yeah, I would say just go to the website injectiveprotocol.com and it'll just tell you everything. Tells you exactly how to get started. If you want to get started on Injective chain, go to help.injective.network. If you want to try out the Injective relayer, it's injective.exchange. But obviously, there's already 5 community relayers that are being spun up, and some of the centralized exchanges actually have a relayer as well at this point. So it's getting very, very interesting.
Nice. That's really cool. And last question, also from my side, just came to my mind, because you also have pretty strong and well-known backers in the space, right? I think Binance and some others that are very well-known, also exchange houses. So what are the collaborations with these guys? Yeah, maybe you can talk about some of the synergies that you have.
Yeah, I think like a lot of these. Well, it obviously depends on each investor. So for Binance, we basically they were the first check, and they helped us for the launchpad process, and they basically been kind of the most hands-on investors ever since then. And obviously, Pantera is one of our biggest investors as well, and they've been just as consistent in terms of helping us. Mark Cuban is obviously an exciting one. So
how did you get him on board?
It's been a while. I don't 100% remember, but basically, I think it was really just reach out, and he liked our idea, and I think that was and that's the end of the story.
Nice.
It was honestly like pretty surreal to basically get his vote of confidence. And yeah, like and I think like one of the most surprising thing about him is that he's probably like given like someone with his portfolio and with his I guess like reputation, or like celebrity status, he's probably like the most responsive and the most active person that we've ever interacted with, and I think that was absolutely like a shocker to us.
That's interesting. Yeah, I didn't expect that.
Yeah,
that's very interesting. But yeah, it seems like he really wants to dig deep into the crypto space, and I think more and more star investors and celebrities that are truly like serious about this space and really understand it. I think they are doing a good job and are being very early. I think Kevin O'Leary is also very, very early on, trying to dig really deep. So yeah, excited to see more of this and all the new features that we talked about. So yeah, thanks for coming on, Eric. I really appreciate your time, and we'll definitely keep in touch and also have you on the next Cosmoverse, hopefully.
Yeah, great. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, guys. See you next time.
Bye.